I still remember that night clearly. A Saturday, in mid-May, the Italian restaurant in downtown Austin, glowing with my mom's birthday candles. Everyone was laughing, clinking glasses, celebrating, and me, Olivia Grant, 31, sitting there, pretending to smile while a strange unease grew inside my chest. I had no idea that just a few minutes later, one sentence would change my life forever. Amid the soft music and warm golden light, my father stood up, his voice cutting through the chatter. Olivia, you need to move out of that house within 48 hours. It doesn't belong to you. The whole table went silent. I looked around, waiting for a laugh, an explanation, but there was nothing. Only my parents' cold stares and the pounding of my heart, as if the world had just collapsed right in the middle of a birthday celebration. That night, I drove home in silence. Austin's city lights still glowed the same, but to me, everything felt heavy distant. The little house on Maple Street no longer felt like home. It felt like a battlefield, one where I was about to lose everything that ever meant something to me. I unlocked the door, turned on the lights. Everything was still there. Grandma's smiling photo on the wooden shelf, her reading chair, the sea green curtains I once chose because they made mornings brighter. Everything looked painfully peaceful. I sat on the sofa, staring into space, and whispered to myself, why would they do this? I knew Dad had money problems, failed investments, pride he couldn't let go of. But taking his own daughters home? That was unthinkable. I didn't sleep that night. I wandered through the house like a ghost, touching each wall, every corner that held a memory. I thought of Grandma, the woman who let me live here after she passed, the one who always said, "This house belongs to you, Olivia. You understand its worth better than anyone." Her words echoed in my mind. If this house truly belonged to me, why did my parents have the right to take it away? I decided to find out. The next morning, I put on gloves, grabbed a flashlight, and went down to the basement, a place I hadn't stepped into since Grandma's passing. Each step down felt colder, heavier. The air smelled of damp wood and forgotten years. Dusty boxes were stacked high. I swept the beam of light across the room, broken chairs, old tools, coiled wires, until it stopped at a cracked wall, where bricks looked like they'd once been moved. I crouched down and pried one loose with a crowbar. After a few minutes, a small gap opened up, revealing a dark wooden box hidden inside. My heart pounded. The lock was rusted. I took it upstairs and forced it open with a screwdriver. The latch snapped, and inside were neatly sealed papers and a folded letter marked in Grandma's handwriting. For Olivia. My hands shook as I opened it. If you are reading this, my dear, it means I'm no longer there. This house, every brick, every door was built with love and honesty. I know your parents won't understand that. They measure worth in money, not heart. I leave this home to you because you'll cherish it for what it is, not what it's worth. Don't ever let anyone make you doubt that, Grandma. Tears blurred the ink. She knew. She'd left the house to me. But why would my parents stand there, looking me in the eye, and say it belonged to the family? I kept digging through the box. Beneath the letter was a thick stack of documents, bills, bank papers, and then a property title. My name was on it, Olivia Grace Grant. Date signed, the 12th of March, 2019, the day Grandma died. My whole body went cold. They knew. They had hidden it. I reached for my phone to call Mom, but stopped. I remembered her eyes at the dinner table last night, guilty, avoiding mine. She knew. She'd chosen silence. I turned the phone off and sat still, letting the tears fall quietly. For a long time, there was only the ticking clock and the whisper of the wind outside. Then I took each paper, laid it flat, photographed everything carefully. I needed help. The first person that came to mind was Sandra Lynn, my old college friend, now a lawyer, specializing in inheritance law. When I sent her the photos, she called back immediately. Olivia, this is solid evidence. If your name is on that title, no one can evict you. But if your father's done something after, we'll find out. Send me the originals. I nodded, a mix of fear and relief washing over me. I knew the real fight was only beginning. Before bed, I placed the wooden box on my nightstand, like a small shield against the storm ahead. I whispered, Grandma, I won't let them take what's mine, I promise. Outside, the wind howled through the trees. Austin was still and quiet, but inside me, something had awakened a fire I'd never dared to light before, the will to protect myself. From that moment on, I was no longer the obedient Olivia they could control. I was Olivia Grant, the woman who would reclaim what was hers, with both heart and justice. ChatGPT Darnoy. 2 days after finding the wooden box, I went to Sandra Lynn's office, a tall glass building in downtown Austin, where the morning light shimmered across spotless windows. I held the document bag so tightly that red marks formed on my hand. Sandra greeted me with a calm smile, her eyes sharp yet kind. Dressed in a gray suit, she said evenly, "Olivia, I've reviewed the photos you sent. The ownership certificate is valid, your grandmother's signature notarized clearly. But there's something else." She turned her laptop toward me. On the screen was a bank record. The words made my stomach drop. Loan holder: Olivia Grace Grant. Amount: $3,000. Issued by First West Bank, Austin. Purpose: Business Consolidation Loan Co. Signed by Thomas Grant. I froze. What is this? Sandra crossed her arms, her tone grave. This loan was opened 8 months ago, under your name. Every detail, the signature, the social security number matches. But I suspect forgery. It felt like the ground beneath me disappeared. I had never taken a loan, never signed anything. But my father, Thomas Grant, was listed as the co-signer. He used my name to get money? I whispered. Sandra nodded slowly. Most likely. He's in financial trouble, isn't he? I gave a bitter laugh. Trouble? He lost nearly everything in a failed investment, and now he's trying to save himself by selling my house. Sandra's gaze hardened. I'll contact the bank and request the original records. If this is forged, it's identity fraud, a criminal offense. The word criminal echoed in my mind. I couldn't believe that the man who once taught me how to ride a bike, who said, "I'll always protect you," was the same man quietly tearing my life apart. That night, I sat in the living room, staring at the property deed. Grandma had trusted me, loved me enough to give me this home. And my father had turned it into a pawn in his debt game. My phone rang. Sandra. Olivia, I have news. The bank sent over the loan documents. Your signature was forged cleverly, but the G in Grant is completely off. I swallowed hard. So they can cancel the loan? Yes, but it has to be formal. You'll need to file a report with both the bank and the police. I'll go with you. The next morning, we met at First West Bank. A nervous teller named Lily greeted us. When I explained that I never took the loan, her eyes widened. After several calls, she returned with a thick folder. When I opened it, my heart stopped. On the last page was my signature, or rather, a distorted version of it. And beneath it, my father's name, Thomas Grant. Lily whispered, "He came in with you that day, or at least with someone he said was his daughter." I looked up sharply. You mean someone pretended to be me? She nodded. The woman wore a hat and mask. She didn't talk much. We followed normal procedure. Nothing seemed suspicious at the time. My head throbbed. My father had gone that far, hiring someone to impersonate me just to make it legal. After leaving the bank, I sat in my car for a long time. Rain pattered softly on the windshield, like quiet tears. I turned on the radio, music played faintly, then switched it off. No song could fill the hollow ache inside me. A message from Sandra popped up. I filed a motion to freeze the loan, change all your passwords, monitor your credit, and save every piece of evidence. I did exactly that. I called Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, the 3 major credit bureaus. All confirmed that my records had been accessed several times in the past year without authorization. It hit me. This wasn't impulsive. My father had planned it for months. He knew the house was mine, so he created a financial mess to make it look like I couldn't handle it. Then he'd use that as his legal excuse to take it back. That night I reread Grandma's letter. The words, "Don't let anyone make you doubt it," glowed under the lamp. I whispered, "I won't doubt anymore, Grandma. I'll fight." 3 days later, Sandra called again. The bank confirmed the fraud. They're canceling the loan and cooperating with investigators. But Olivia, there's another problem. My breath caught. What now? Your father filed a legal petition claiming ownership of the house, saying you're in financial distress and unfit to maintain it. I laughed bitterly. He created the mess, and now he's using it against me. Sandra's tone hardened. Exactly. And that's why we'll win. I need every document you have your grandmother's letter. The title. Any witnesses. He's not just guilty of fraud, Olivia. He's crossed a moral line. I nodded slowly, scanning the walls around me. Family photos that once brought warmth now looked like strangers. I took them down, one by one, and packed them away. Because this wasn't just a legal battle anymore. It was a fight for truth and for my name, and I swore, even if I had to face my own father in court, I would not back down. I used to believe that no matter what happened, family would always be the place I could return to in the end. I was wrong. After the fraud was exposed, Sandra filed an official motion with the court to freeze ownership of the house until the case was resolved. I knew that would make my father furious, but I didn't expect his rage to spread like a disease through my own bloodline. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. The first message came from my mother. "What are you doing, Olivia? Your father was only trying to help. You can't take your own father to court. You'll regret this." I stared at the words, numb and sick. She knew he was wrong. She knew everything. Yet instead of stopping him, she chose to stand by his side. Before I could reply, another message arrived from my brother Marcus. "Please stop this, Liv. You're embarrassing the whole family. Who drags their own parents to court? If you needed money, they were willing to help. But now, you're on your own." I laughed bitterly. Help? They called stealing my identity and forging my signature help. By noon, it was no longer private. Marcus posted publicly on Facebook, tagging me. It breaks my heart to see someone turn against their own parents over a few papers and a house. No one knows the full story, but I know my parents don't deserve this. Number family first. Dozens of comments followed from neighbors, relatives, old classmates. Olivia was always selfish. All she cares about is money. Shameful. Each line felt like a knife to the chest. I wanted to scream that they didn't know the truth, that I was only protecting what was rightfully mine, but I stopped. They wouldn't listen. They never had. That afternoon, my mother called. Her voice trembled. "Olivia, you're hurting everyone, don't you see? Your father hasn't slept in days. Marcus is being talked about at work. Please, stop before this gets worse." I closed my eyes. "Mom, he committed a crime. He forged my identity. You can't just pretend nothing happened." Quote, "Your father was only trying to save this family. You have no idea how much pressure he's under." "What about me, Mom?" I whispered, my throat tight. "Who's going to save me?" Silence. Then she said softly, "You always have a choice, Olivia. Just give up the house, and everything will be fine." That house, the one where Grandma planted lavender, where I used to sit on the porch reading, was now something they told me to give up like a meaningless trinket. I hung up, my hands trembling. Betrayal didn't feel like one stab, it was a hailstorm. Relentless. Pounding until I had no strength left to defend myself. 3 days later, someone knocked. Marcus stood on the porch, his shirt wrinkled, his eyes cold. "So you're really turning this into a public circus?" "I just want the truth." "The truth you're chasing is destroying Dad. He was hospitalized last night. High blood pressure. Are you happy now?" I stared at him, the same brother who once protected me from bullies. Now, he stood on the side of the man who had ruined me, just because they shared the same blood. "I'm not happy, Marcus. I'm just tired. Tired of proving to my own family that I'm not lying." He scoffed. "You always play the victim. Grow up, Olivia. Let it go." Then he walked away, leaving a faint trail of cigarette smoke behind him. I closed the door, leaned against the wall, and for the first time in years I didn't cry. Not because I didn't hurt, but because I had run out of tears. That night, Sandra came over with a paper bag and a pizza box. "I saw your brother's post," she said, setting them down. "The good news? They just weakened their case. When we go to court, that public post can serve as evidence of intimidation and defamation." I looked up. "Really?" She nodded. "And even better, I filed to have your parents summoned for testimony. They'll have to face the truth, not hide behind emotions." I exhaled slowly, staring out the window. The Austin night glowed red under the streetlights. Somewhere, people laughed, music played, life went on, as if nothing had happened. But for me, standing in the wreckage of everything I once trusted, there was only silence, the silence of faith that had died. I turned to Sandra and said quietly, "Maybe it's time I accept that sometimes family isn't where you belong. It's what you have to escape from. She placed a hand on my shoulder and squeezed gently. Exactly. And once you walk out of that darkness, you'll never have to go back. I gave a faint smile. Inside, my heart was still shattered, but among the broken pieces, something new was forming, a kind of armor. Harder, colder, and clearer than ever before. I never thought I'd see Aunt Eleanor again. In my childhood memories, she was just a shadow in the stories my parents told, always spoken of, with a hint of disdain. Eleanor always meddles in things that don't concern her, or Eleanor doesn't understand the value of family. Every time her name came up, my mother would sigh, and my father would let out a cold laugh. So when I received an email from an unfamiliar address titled, "I know the truth about your house," I almost deleted it, but something in my gut told me to open it. And in just a few short lines, my life took a turn I never expected. Olivia, I'm Eleanor, your mother's sister. There are things you need to know. Don't believe everything they say. Your grandmother left everything to you, and they've hidden it. If you're ready to hear the truth, come see me. Tell no one. I must have read that message 10 times. It felt like a hand reaching out from the dark, inviting me to step through a door of long-buried secrets. 3 days later, I drove over 2 hours to a small town called Fredericksburg where she lived. The place was peaceful vineyards stretching into the horizon, old white fences, a sleepy kind of quiet. When I stopped in front of a small blue wooden house, the door opened, and there she was, slender, silver-haired, her eyes soft but filled with sorrow. "Olivia," she said gently, "you look more like your grandmother than I ever imagined." That one sentence made my throat tighten. For a moment, I was a little girl again, running through the garden, hearing my grandmother call from the porch. We sat in her living room, a pot of mint tea and a plate of cookies on the table between us. The comforting scent made me feel strangely safe. She studied me quietly before asking, "I know you're hurting. They've treated you badly, haven't they?" I nodded and told her everything. The birthday dinner, the forged loan, the online humiliation. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sighed, her eyes flashing with anger and compassion. "I knew this would happen. Thomas, your father, hasn't changed. He's always believed money and property define his worth." I frowned. "You knew about the house all along?" "From the beginning," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Your grandmother left it to you because she knew who your parents really were. She loved them, but she didn't trust them. Before she passed, she asked me to witness her signing the will. The original was sent to her lawyer in Salem. She hid a copy somewhere in the house, probably that box you found." My heart skipped. "So they knew?" She nodded. "Right after the funeral, your father confronted the lawyer, demanding the original will. But the man refused, said only you had the right to claim it. After that, your parents cut me off completely. When they learned you were living in the house, they just waited for the right moment to take it back." I swallowed hard. Why did Mom stay silent? Eleanor looked distant. "Because she was afraid. Your mother has always been fragile. Thomas controlled the finances, the family's image, everything. She chose silence to keep the peace, even when she knew it was wrong." Tears rolled down my cheeks. All my life, I believed if I was good enough, they'd love me. But I was just convenient. My aunt reached across the table, taking my hands in hers, frail, warm, steady. "No, Olivia, you were never just convenient. You are your grandmother's rightful heir. And now it's time you stand up, not just to reclaim the house, but your voice." When I looked up, I saw in her eyes something I hadn't felt in a long time: hope. She stood, opened a cabinet, and pulled out a thick envelope. "I've kept this for years, just in case you ever needed it." Inside was a notarized copy of the original will. The words were crystal clear. "Full ownership of the property at 411 Maple Street, Austin, Texas, is bequeathed to my granddaughter, Olivia Grace Grant." Below were 3 signatures: my grandmother's, the lawyer's, and Eleanor Parker, witness. I threw my arms around her. For the first time in months, I felt like I had a piece of real family again, the kind that protects, not destroys. Before I left, she said softly, "Olivia, remember, justice doesn't just come from courts. It comes from having the courage to face the truth, to step out of their shadow. I'll testify for you if I have to." I nodded, my eyes burning. I won't let them take what's mine. Not this time. On the drive back to Austin, the wind rushed through the open window, carrying a faint scent of lavender from my sleeve, the same fragrance Eleanor sprayed on her handkerchief when she hugged me goodbye. My heart felt lighter, yet I knew the real battle was only beginning. They could lie, smear, and hide, but now I had proof, a witness, and the truth itself. For the first time, I wasn't alone. In the rearview mirror, the sunset painted the sky, gold and crimson. I smiled faintly. Grandma, Aunt Eleanor, I'm ready. That morning, Austin was wrapped in a thick fog. I stood in front of the county courthouse, clutching the folder in my hands. Everything from the original will and forged loan papers to the bank statements, proving the fraudulent debt was inside. Each sheet of paper was a wound they had inflicted on me, and now it would become the weapon I used to fight back. Megan Lewis, the attorney Aunt Eleanor had introduced me to, rested a hand on my shoulder. They might deny everything, Olivia, but you have the truth, and the truth is always stronger than a lie. I nodded, swallowing the tremor in my throat. Inside the courtroom, my parents sat across from me, my father with his arms crossed, and that cold, unshakable expression, my mother avoiding my gaze. My sister Brooke was there too, chin held high, eyes full of contempt as if this entire trial were just a performance. When the judge entered, my heart pounded so hard I could almost hear it. The trial began. Megan started, calm and precise. Your Honor, my client, Miss Olivia Grant, has been the victim of inheritance fraud committed by her own family. Her late grandmother, Mrs. Helen Parker, left the property at 411 Maple Street to Miss Grant in a legally notarized will with a signed witness. However, after Mrs. Parker's passing, the defendants, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas and Linda Grant, concealed the will, continued to occupy the property unlawfully, and created a falsified loan under Miss Grant's name. My father immediately stood up. Lies, that will is fake. The house has been in our family for over 30 years. The girl lived there out of our kindness. The judge glanced down at the documents as Megan presented the original notarized copy and Eleanor's signed witness statement. Mrs. Eleanor Parker, please take the stand. Aunt Eleanor stepped forward, her silver hair glinting under the courtroom lights. Her voice was steady but resolute. I was present when my sister, Helen Parker, signed that will. I signed as a witness, and she clearly stated that the house was to belong to her only granddaughter, Olivia. The air in the room grew heavy. My father scoffed. Eleanor, you've always been jealous of this family. Now you side with her against us? Aunt Eleanor met his gaze, sharp as a blade. No, Thomas. I'm simply telling the truth. You're the one who betrayed your sister, not me. The judge struck his gavel for order. Then it was my turn. I stood, facing my parents direct. That house isn't just property, I said, my voice shaking but firm. It's where I grew up, where Grandma taught me to cook, where she told me that family means love, not ownership. You didn't just take the house, you took my trust. My father stayed silent. My mother looked down, tears falling. I didn't know if it was guilt or fear. Megan continued, submitting the bank records. Your Honor, these statements show that on the exact day the fraudulent loan was filed under Miss Grant's name, $3,000 was deposited into Mr. Thomas Grant's account. The courtroom murmured. Mr. Thomas Grant, the judge said slowly, do you have an explanation for using your daughter's name to secure a loan? My father froze. I only used her name temporarily to get faster approval. I meant to pay it back. But you didn't, Megan cut in. And you forged her digital signature. The bank has verified this. Silence. My father couldn't meet my eyes. For the first time, I saw him stripped of all his power, a man cornered by his own deceit. 3 hours later, the verdict came. Based on the presented evidence, the judge declared, the court recognizes Miss Olivia Grant as the sole legal owner of the property, located at 411 Maple Street. The defendants, Thomas and Linda Grant, are found guilty of financial fraud and forgery and must compensate the plaintiff $10,000 in damages and court fees. I barely heard the rest. Tears filled my eyes, not from sorrow but from release. Megan squeezed my hand gently. You did it, Olivia. You won. I turned back. My father kept his head down. My mother trembled in tears, and Brooke stormed out, furious. But I didn't feel triumph, only a strange stillness, as if an old chapter had finally closed. Outside, the sky was clear, the breeze light on my face. Aunt Eleanor was waiting at the courthouse steps, smiling softly. "Your grandmother would be proud of you," she said. I hugged her tightly. "I couldn't have done it without you." She shook her head. "No, Olivia. You always had that strength. You just needed someone to remind you." That afternoon, standing before the old house, I laid my hand against the wall I once painted myself. Sunlight streamed through the windows, touching every corner I had once cleaned with love. Now, it was truly mine, but more than the house I had reclaimed my life. 3 months after the trial, I signed the papers to sell the house at 411 Maple Street. People kept asking me, "Why not keep it? That was your victory." I only smiled. They didn't understand sometimes. To truly move on, you have to let go of what once belonged to you. That house had once been a place I loved, but it also carried shadows, the yelling, the tears, the cold words that broke my heart. I didn't want to wake up every morning and see the ghosts of those who betrayed me. I wanted a new start, a real one. I remember the afternoon I signed the papers. When the realtor handed me a check for nearly $200,000, a quiet relief spread through my body. It wasn't about the money, it was about standing on my own, owing no one, fearing no one. I used part of it to pay off my debts, and with the rest, I bought a small apartment near a lake in the suburbs of San Marcos. It had only 2 rooms, filled with sunlight. Every morning, I made myself a cup of coffee, opened the window to watch the sunlight dance on the water, and listened to the birds calling to one another in the trees. No one shouted at me to be grateful. No one told me how I should live. It was just me and the silence I once feared, but have now learned to love. Some nights I write in my journal, noting every little thing I'm grateful for: the smell of fresh coffee, the light rain in the afternoon, or a good night text from Aunt Eleanor. She still calls me every week. She once said, "See, darling, justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's just a night when you can sleep without fear." My mother once sent me a letter, just a few lines. "I'm sorry. I stayed silent for too long. I don't know how to fix it, but if one day you want to talk, I'll be here." I read it many times. I didn't tear it up, nor did I reply. I just placed it in a small wooden box, along with old photos of Grandma and me. I've learned that forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone hurt you again. It means freeing yourself from the weight of the past. One May afternoon, I visited Aunt Eleanor in Fredericksburg. She was tending to her lavender garden, smiling beneath her straw hat. We drank tea on the porch, talking about simple, peaceful things. She asked, "Do you regret it?" I looked out at the fading sun over the fields. "No, Auntie. I used to think revenge meant making them hurt like I did. But now I understand. True revenge is living better than they ever expected. It's finding peace without needing anyone to suffer for it." She smiled, her hand gently squeezing mine. "That, my dear, is your victory." That night, back in my small apartment, I poured a glass of wine and turned on soft music. The city lights reflected against the cream-colored wall, warm and quiet, and I realized this is home, not because of any deed or permission, but because I chose it. I built it with my own strength. Sometimes, I still dream about the past, my father's shouting, my mother's cold eyes, the house filled with shadows. But when I wake up, I just smile. Those memories no longer have power over me. They're only echoes from a chapter I've already closed. I've started teaching again art classes for kids at the community center. Every time I see them laughing, paint all over their hands, I see the 8-year-old version of myself, the little girl who still believed beauty could heal everything. One day, a little girl asked me, "Miss Olivia, why do you always smile when you teach us?" I bent down, patted her head, and smiled. Because I once forgot how to, and now I never want to lose it again. That night, I wrote in my journal, "I used to think justice was the court's verdict. Now I know real justice is when I can love myself. After everything." Outside, the wind carried the scent of lavender Aunt Eleanor had given me. I closed my eyes and listened to my own steady breathing. No fear, no anger, only peace, the kind I earned. Scar by scar. I don't know how my parents or Brooke live now. Maybe they still cling to their excuses, or maybe they regret it all. Either way, it doesn't matter anymore. I've stepped out of their shadow, out of the house, out of the words that once made me feel small. And when I look at myself in the mirror, I see a different woman, strong, calm, and free. I smile. Sometimes the sweetest revenge is not needing revenge at all, just living happily and being healed enough not to look back.